Well, I was just about to sit down and do another top 10 list to feed the YouTube algorithm, and I was going to do top 10 watches under $50, but honestly, they're all Casios. I will give a special mention out to the Timex Expedition, but mainly they're all Casios. So it got me thinking about one Casio watch that's got a massive cult following. We're talking about the Casio World Time. Is the World Time a really great watch? And when I started researching it, I found Amazon selling them for $19 for the basic version of this watch. I went for the upgrade and got the one on stainless steel bracelet, which again was amazingly under $50. Is this the best watch for under $50? I mean, there's so much choice, isn't there? Who's to say? But let's concentrate on this watch and see whether it is still worthy of such high praise from watch collectors. And we'll definitely be talking about a couple of negatives towards the end of this watch as well. When I first received this watch the other day, one of the things that struck me about it was I thought it was going to be a small digital watch, but it does have quite an impressive wrist presence. For reference, my wrist is 7.2 inches. But the specs on this watch, from lug to lug, it's coming in at 45 millimeters. Across the middle of the watch, it's 39.5. But if we're taking the buttons into account, it's 44.5. And those buttons do stick quite prominently outside the case, which means they're very easy to use. The watch is also 12.5 millimeters thick, which means that it does sit slightly up on the wrist, which again gives it a larger visual appearance to it, which I personally love about this. And even though this watch has a stainless steel bracelet, it's coming in at only 91 grams. And it's 91 grams because the main case of this watch is made of resin. There's a whole modding scene around these watches, and there is several aftermarket metal cases available for this watch. I might do a tutorial on modding this watch because I think it certainly does deserve at least a metal case. The other thing on this as well, which again is slightly disappointing, but I can't argue for $30, is the fact that this has a resin glass on here. So it will scratch, but it also is quite easy to get lighter scratches off using Polywatch. Impressively, this watch doesn't have solar or atomic timekeeping like we see on other Casio models, but it does have a 10-year battery life. 10 years on a $30 watch. You can't really complain on that. This particular model is the silver version, although they do several different versions. I went for this one because I love the fact that it's got that black bezel over the LCD. It has that sort of retro 80s futuristic look to it, I think. I particularly like the large round dial. This keeps a consistent view of the time, but in analog. But the dial itself reminds me of a sonar, or for some reason it reminds me of that old TV show, Joe 90. It looks as if James Bond has opened a briefcase and there's spy equipment with sonar tracking down Russian torpedoes or something. Moving to the right of the dial, and it has that now iconic to this watch, the map of the world. Well, unless you're one of those flat earthers, of course. As you go through the world time setting, you can see the different time zones highlighted on the LCD, which is an iconic feature of this watch in particular. And impressively, this has 31 time zones covering 48 cities. This watch is feature packed. Multi-time zones, stopwatch and a countdown timer, as you'd expect, and 5 daily alarms that can either be triggered on a regular basis or just go off one time. The backlight on here again has a retro look to it because it illuminates in amber, which again makes me think of vintage spy equipment, as if it maybe has those Nixie tubes or something like that in there that used to glow amber. So I quite like this amber backlight to it, and of course makes it highly visible in the dark. The overall display is also highly visible with the black on the silver LCD. This is very crisp. It's also easy to view from multiple angles. Sometimes can be missed on cheaper G-Shocks, like the very entry-level base G-Shock that they do. Sometimes can distort in different lighting conditions, the LCD, but this one is clear, multiple different angles on your wrist. So now to one of the bigger negatives, and that's this stainless steel bracelet. Of course, very impressive that it comes with a stainless steel bracelet, and surprisingly, it seems difficult to adjust it yourself, but it's very easy. It's almost like a metal puzzle. You slide these metal pieces out, like metal pins, pins, and then it's easy to adjust the bracelet. Now, the negative on this bracelet for me, other than the fact that I always find it weird, metal bracelets with resin cases, but maybe that's just my own issue. The bad thing with this, and this isn't going to affect everyone, because I've got very hairy arms, I'm not yet one of those YouTubers who shaves their arm for the art. You know who I'm talking about. But because I've got hairy wrists, the back of the case where these middle sections fold in of the bracelet, they do really catch the hairs on your wrist and pull them out. So sometimes it is like wearing a wax strip, this watch, certainly for me. I have ordered an aftermarket strap, a rubber strap. We'll swap this out. And again, that rubber strap was very affordable. Does this watch still hold the test of time, and is it worth its cult following? I certainly think so. It has an iconic look to it. It's less than $50. The buttons are very easy to use. It is quite durable for everyday life. This one is painted silver, and that silver is very likely going to wear off. So it will look a little bit like chipped nail polish eventually, because underneath there is a grey backing to it. So it will chip off eventually. It does have 100-meter water resistance as well, which I think is very impressive for a watch of this price range. So it's going to cover you for the most encounters with water that you have. So I think to answer the question, it's definitely worth picking one of these up. It is an icon. It does have a cult following. But more importantly, what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'll see you next time on Casual Watch Reviews.